Welcome to Unveiled Horizons. So, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my series, The Unveiled Horizons. So, today in our fourth episode, we are talking about infectious diseases and One Health. So, here we have our guest for the day, my friend Hale from the Philippines, who was an Erasmus student specializing in infectious diseases and One Health. So, welcome to my program and thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so let's start with a little introduction about yourself.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, my name is Hale. You can call me Hale. But my real name is Hannah Leah. So, I just graduated with my second master's degree, which is it's an Erasmus program called Infectious Diseases and One Health. I'm also a One Health advocate and an aspiring science communicator. So, yeah.
So, what about, like you said, this is your second master's. So, what about the
Yes.
first one and also your bachelor's?
Oh, so my bachelor's, for my bachelor's, I have a plant breeding and genetics background, and for my first master's, I did a degree in molecular biology and biotechnology with uh, like a specialization in biochemistry.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So, you just said that you are an aspiring young scientist. So, why did you choose science? Like you can select anything like commerce or like literally anything, but why
Yeah,
science? What
that's
sparked you?
true. I think it was a little bit natural for me because I was really exposed to it at an early age. So I was really interested in it because partly because of my father. My father is a plant breeder. He's really good at what he does. He was able to develop several corn lines. He worked for the academe, and then eventually he worked for many years in the industry with a multinational company. It was also partly because of media exposure, the things that I was watching, the things that we have at home. So we have lots of books, encyclopedias, when encyclopedias were still a thing, like the hardbound thing,
Yeah.
not Wikipedia. Like we still had those actual books that people sell, and then you buy
Mhm.
it by set. So we had those, and also the TV shows I watched. My favorite was Bill Nye the Science Guy. I don't know if you guys know him, and National Geographic, Discovery Channel, those things, and also parental encouragement. I think in our my parents really encouraged me to um, do well in school in terms of science. So yeah, there were times when I would be tired learning science, but they would really encourage me to just keep at it. So I guess it was natural, the choice. Yeah, I didn't really um well, it's not as if it's a no brainer, but like I just drifted to it, I guess,
Mhm.
naturally. Yeah.
Mhm. And then science has so many disciplines. So why did you
Yes.
specifically chose this infectious diseases and One Health?
Yeah, but to be honest, so yeah, I told you about my background, right?
Mhm.
My undergraduate was plant breeding and genetics. It's so far from infectious
Yeah.
diseases because, excuse me, when you think of infectious diseases, it's like you're just dealing with human infectious diseases. But my background was plant breeding and genetics, partly because of the influence of my father. he's a plant breeder. And when I was deciding, when I was in senior high, what I was going to do, or what I was going to major in the uni, I was like, I don't know what to put in the forms. So I just figured, okay, let's just put agriculture, because my dad, my that's what my dad did. And so I did that. And then along the way, while doing my courses in the uni, I really fell in love with genetics and also with molecular biology. But even if my major was in plant breeding, my 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 thesis during that time and my interests was really molecular. So I was one of the um, first or then also few people who did only like concentrated molecular biology work for my thesis. Yeah, and then to be honest, I was also aspiring to be a doctor at that time, but it didn't pan out. So after I graduated and I realized that I I didn't have any interests in plants at all. So it took me graduating to realize that I have no interest in plants at all. But I also was like, even though I have interest in, I was thinking maybe I could be a doctor. I was still not sure. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely not for plants. Maybe I could be in humans or in animals. So I was like, okay. During when they announced that, okay, this is the last day of applications for graduate school, and I didn't have work, I didn't have anything to do, I didn't have any plans after graduation. I was like, okay, what the hell, I will just I'll just apply for grad school. And I signed up for I got all my recommendations, and in like one day submitted it the last day itself, and I majored in molecular biology and biotechnology, and I ended up really liking it.
Mhm.
But my university at that time specialized in agriculture studies, and the only um for my supervisor, the only project she has that did not involve plants were in fishes. So my thesis was in microsatellite characterization of endemic and native fish species in my hometown.
Mhm.
So that's what I did. And then when I graduated from that particular master's, I still didn't know what to do, and I was like, I I I mean, I could teach, yes, I could do that, but like, yeah, I could also work for industry. But to be honest, I don't really know what I would want to work on in the industry. If they ask me, I don't know anything. I don't know what to answer. But there was an opening for the government, um where I so that was my first job in the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, which is the research arm of the Philippines Department of Health.
Mhm.
So I was under the molecular biology laboratory, and we are doing research on mostly infectious diseases, on human infectious diseases. And that institution is also incidentally a small hospital just dedicated for infectious diseases. So
Mhm.
if there are patients who would go there for for non-infectious diseases, they would refer it to other hospitals. Yeah, because this is like really specialized for infectious diseases, human infectious diseases only. So I worked there for 7.5 years, and that was where I was able to cultivate my interest in infectious diseases, mainly in viruses, because I mostly work with viruses. And then there I also encountered the concept of One Health. So that's why when I applied my second master's, which is this Erasmus program, it was really, I was like, oh, this is nice. I could level up my skills, just learn more about this, because aside from working for infectious diseases, I didn't have any academic background on it. So yeah, that's why I'm in infectious diseases right now.
Okay, so we have been talking about infectious diseases and One Health. Like
Yeah.
we
Mm-hmm.
kept talking about the term, but
Mm-hmm.
what does that actually mean? Like, assuming that the audience has no knowledge at all, can you
Yeah.
explain, like, in detail?
So, infectious diseases are any disorders that are caused by organisms that are usually of microscopic in size. So, it's not limited to just bacteria or viruses. So, it could also be fungi or any parasites that you could acquire directly or indirectly from either a person or maybe an animal as well, because y- um, it's now common knowledge that you can also acquire diseases from animals. So yeah, so that's infectious diseases. It's this those are the disorders that or diseases that are caused by these tiny, super tiny microscopic organisms. Now, One Health is actually an approach. Actually, the CDC would define the US CDC would define this as um, an approach that recognizes. So this is a very multidisciplinary field and a very collaborative field that recognizes that the health of humans is closely tied to the health of animals and our shared environment. It's not a new concept. It has been around since the 1960s. However, it's been gaining a lot of attention in the recent years. It was actually coined by a veterinarian, which was trained in human public health. So yeah, so it's been around for a while, but it's becoming more popular right now because especially because human diseases that are caused by that come from animal sources are becoming a thing now. So yeah, yeah. I
So,
don't know. I don't know if you've read the news about the Nipah outbreak in India, in Kerala. So those are one of the examples of diseases that
mhm,
we are working on. Yeah.
okay. So I asked this from all the science people that comes to the series. So how do you normally conduct a research in your field?
There is actually varied methods in conducting research in the field. Although most of the time, when people think of infectious disease research, they almost always think about laboratory work,
Yeah.
like just working in the laboratory with chemicals, with all those things. The
Yeah.
typical
With the
thing you
microscope
imagine as
and
science. Yes, yeah, the typical thing that you imagine a scientist would normally do. Yeah, we do those things, but also there are people who conduct research by computers, like data science. They work on existing data already, or like maybe um, data that are generated by people working in the lab,
mhm,
something like that. Or they actually do this by doing field work, getting into the field, getting themselves out there and exploring what is in there in the field. And also some people, I'm not sure if this counts as research though, but people actually also get into policy making.
mhm.
Yeah.
So this is just a question that I just got. So
Okay. Mm-hmm.
um Now you come from a plant background, I mean, you're a bachelor's.
Yes.
So for
Yeah.
an example, if somebody wants to like kind of, let's say, do higher studies in infectious diseases, what kind of
Mm-hmm.
a background should they have?
It helps that you have um it helps that, well, in my cohort, for example, we mostly have veterinarians and scientists and medical doctors. We have those, the composition of our cohort are those people. I think it helps to have it. It certainly is an advantage if you have a science background.
Mhm.
It was a bit of a challenge for me because um, I came from a plant breeding background. But then, since um, e- even though that was the case, I was already exposed to molecular biology, and I think that played a role because
Mhm.
molecular biology is not really a field; it's a tool, and it
Mhm.
applies to a lot of different fields. So you can use it if you're a biologist. You can use it. Some uh, chemists actually use molecular biology techniques. So yeah, a lot of fields can use molecular biology techniques because it's a tool. It's not a
Okay.
field. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it helped that I have that kind of background since I was in undergraduate. But you're not limited to just having a molecular biology field. You can you it's good to have like a really solid science foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I asked because in our country we don't have like a specific
Mm-hmm.
degree called infectious diseases. So what we
Yes.
have is molecular biology and biotechnology,
Yes.
microbiology, immunology and integrative molecular
Mm-hmm.
biology, and
Mm-hmm.
also just like you said, chemistry and
Yes.
plant sciences. Like these are the fields that a bioscience
Mm-hmm.
student can like pursue. So do you
Mm-hmm.
think they would have like a chance in pursuing infectious diseases
Yes,
after their graduation?
definitely.
Okay,
Definitely they do. Yeah.
okay. And now that we talked about like getting into this, so once you graduate, what kind
Uh-huh.
of career paths like can these people who studied infectious diseases go for?
So I mentioned earlier when I defined One Health that One Health is an extremely there is a collaborative nature in this field. So given that, the career paths are also endless because people from different fields are working towards this approach. So you can be a veterinarian, you can be a medical doctor, you can be an epidemiologist, you can be a someone who works heavily in the lab. And one might think that you will be limited to teaching or working at the academe. You can definitely do that if that's your thing. But definitely, um, you have the option to work with organizations that influence policies as well, because policies are huge driving forces for implementing public health measures, especially during emergencies. We can
Mhm.
all agree to that. You can also work in the industry, like for example developing drugs, developing vaccines, and also diagnostic testing approaches, those things. You can also go into safety. For example, biosafety, food safety, environmental safety, those things, like regulation. There is lots of career paths. Also, data science. It's a very in-demand field right now that is like all-encompassing. So, yeah.
Mhm. So you have studied like for a very long time and also you have worked. So what are the
Mm-hmm.
challenges that you had to face, and most importantly, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think It started with not really knowing what I wanted, like not really having that
Mhm.
defined goal in mind. Like, I want to be a doctor. Okay, which doctor? I want to be this kind of doctor. Like something I didn't have that, and I guess I just moved through it. Maybe I could, I don't know, I don't know. Maybe I could elaborate on it later on, but like,
Mhm.
yeah, if it's a very challenging thing if you don't know what you want at the start. So for me, what happened was I just worked with what I know and with the current situation that I was in. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to discover what I was passionate about. And I also think resources is a really it's one of the challenges that I faced, because um, resources are having the resources to pursue sciences is a privilege. It is it yeah, it is a privilege. Like I'm just thinking of words to put that, to how to emphasize that, but it really is. I'm sure you agree, right?
Yeah, because as we all come from third world countries,
Yes,
the
yeah,
equipment is so expensive and
exactly.
it's really a privilege.
Um, yeah, I remember having to struggle both in my undergrad and during my first masters, which I did in my home country. Um, Before you can start an experiment, it would take you several several months before you could do it. So like delaying the the progress of your project is part of the equation. Sometimes you really get frustrated because why can't I finish this? Yeah, you kind of start questioning, is it me or is it just the situation that sucks? Yeah, those things. So yeah, resources play a huge role. And also one of the things that I realized after coming to Europe to study is being an immigrant is also a challenge, because you have to navigate a totally different culture, a totally different environment, the language. Even though you are surrounded with people that are helpful, the fact that there is language barrier, it it already is kind of a challenge. And also like culture wise, you know how Asians are usually more reserved and would, if there is an issue to face, would like go around
Mhm.
everything, like not getting direct to the point compared to Europeans. So yeah, having to navigate that in a workplace was also a challenge. And also documentation, like getting like it's a, one would think that, I'm sure you guys also have this problem in your own country, like the bureaucracy in your own country. We have that as well. But then when you get to Europe, people think that, oh, it's much better there, but it's the same
Ah,
thing. It's the same thing. It's just a different environment, different people you're interacting with, but it's the same thing. So it's, yeah, having like, I mean, the only plus side I think with being in your own country is that you're assured because you are a citizen. You have a sense of security. But when you are in another country, when you're in a foreign country, the if you are not legal, you have this foreboding sense of, what if they find out? and I'm in the middle of my research, and yeah, those things can really disrupt you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and trust me when I say this, like in our country, we can get a bank account set up and get the debit card
Yes.
within like 10
Yes.
seconds. It took me 3 months
Exactly.
here.
Yeah, those things. And you know, I one of the things that I was really surprised in terms of banking, okay. Um when there was a time when I had to buy a new laptop because I was crazy to come to Europe with not carrying a laptop because my laptop back home was super old. So I was like, okay, I'll just leave my laptop there. I don't think I need a laptop. I'll just use the laptop, the computers in the library and something like that. But it became a challenge to me because, of course, the keyboards and everything. So it's like, and the libraries close. Unlike in my country where it's like you could stay there overnight, weekends, the libraries close, the groceries close, those things. Like it's a totally different thing. So I had to buy one, and it exceeded my spending limit in the bank. It's like, why would you limit my spending? It's my money. So yeah, those things, those are yeah, some of the things that was really new to me. It's like, oh, it's better, it's much better in my country. It's something that you could also appreciate as well about your country. Yeah, for us, most of the time we think that if I could only get out. And then once you get out, you kind of miss it. You kind of miss your own land, the security that you have in your own place. Yeah.
Okay, so you were an Erasmus student, not just another master student. So you
Mm.
can explain what an Erasmus program is and how that works and what kind of like good memories and also maybe the bad ones that you have
Mm.
moving from one country to another.
Mm. Um. Okay. So Erasmus program is actually a student exchange program funded by the European Union. And what happens is, well, I can only speak for my program, okay, and what I know with the Erasmus program in general.
Mhm.
So, students who join the Erasmus program study um, for 2 years. Actually, I know one program that has only 1 year, only lasts 1 year, but normally, um, what happens is the consortiums under the Erasmus program um, have um, it's a partnership with some of the leading institutions in Europe, and so they would offer a master's degree, and what happens is actually students that um, that get accepted here, most of them would be it will be their first time living in Europe or in another country. So it actually became a cultural phenomenon. So there is what you call an Erasmus experience. It's very popular among European students, and it's gaining a lot of popularity outside Europe as well. So for my program, the partnership is among Europe's leading institutions in the field of infectious diseases and the One Health concept. So um, the three founding partners is a university in France, a university in Spain, and a university in Germany. So usually Erasmus programs are like that. There are three or four institutions that are in partnership with one another, and they jointly provide the degree to the students who would be accepted and then would finish the the master's program. So yeah, as for experience, to be honest with the experience, I got more than what I imagined I would get. I did not only gain a lot of learnings from these institutions, top-notch education, and also experience in terms of internship, but I also got a lot of great mentorship. And also because I mentioned that it's a cultural experience basically, um, it is able to foster a lot of learning and understanding um, for the student. There's a lot of time to learn, definitely, and also it's a chance to socialize and experience a different culture because you move from one country to another. And then aside from that, you also experience different culture in a sense that your the people consisting your cohort are also from different kinds of culture, so it's like a hodgepodge of cultures. Yeah, so for my cohort, I have people coming from Europe. I have people coming from the American continent. So I have a classmate from the US, I have a classmate from Argentina, several parts of Europe, but most of us are from Asia and from Africa. So I have classmates from Nigeria, from Zambia, from Japan, Taiwan, India actually, and Bangladesh and Pakistan. So yeah, those were so it's really multicultural. We get to celebrate each other's holidays. We yeah. So most of the time, well, I mean, for the Philippines, we celebrate Christmas, and most in the past few years we have been celebrating Halloween, which are like American holidays. But in some countries they don't celebrate Christmas. So some of us have been, it was their first time celebrating Christmas with us. And then we were able to celebrate Holi, which is a Hindu holiday. So we did that. We also celebrated Eid along with our Muslim classmates. So it's really a good experience to immerse yourself in different cultures while you are learning. So yeah. As for bad experience, I mean, one would think that moving from one country to another is fabulous. It is, I think, to some extent, but it's super tiring. It it's exhausting, to be honest, because for instance, so most programs would start around September, and then Christmas holidays would be right around the corner. So you only have 3.5 months at most to spend in one country, and then you have to move to another country. So you're just getting settled in, and then you have to move again. And so it's like moving every few months or so. And then before you know it, 1.5 years has passed, and all of you have to move away. I mean, not all Erasmus programs were like us, because for for my program, we were able. But I think I heard some programs were like they were only able to meet in their first country, and then they had to choose where they wanted to go. So yeah, they weren't really as close. But for my cohort, we were really close because we moved from one country to another. We got to experience, and we were able to see each other almost every day for 1.5 years. So we were really tight. So that really contributed to the closeness that the closest of our relationships among each other. But yeah, it is tiring, and sometimes you would also get homesick. We um I, for one, like my first few months was just it took me time to adjust. I was really depressed and so sad because I'm in a different culture, and also I don't have my comfort people, my comfort zone. I'm not in my comfort zone. So those things are challenging, especially when you like the cohort would have to separate for internships. Yeah. It's a really sad thing. Yeah. So I think those are, and aside from that, the legal stuff, like renewing your visa, all the immigrant things that you can think of, like those are I guess the drawback, the challenges. I mean, not really drawback. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now we talked about like how you didn't have this like, okay, I'm gonna be this person when I grow up
Yeah.
mindset. So I mean, there are a lot of students like this. Like, for an
Mm,
example, they don't know what they're good at. Like, I get this
mm,
question all the time. Like, if you still have not figured out what you're good at, how are you going
mm,
to like? How do you know what you're good at? Do you have any
mm,
advice for students like that? For people
mm.
who don't know what they're good at?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that question. I love that because for a long time, really for a long time, I did not know what I wanted to do. I think I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Um, and so I kind of drifted from one field to another. And to be honest, it I don't see it as a waste of resources, but it definitely would have been better if I already knew what I wanted. But yeah, I mean, not everybody is privileged to have that. But I think um what you can do is to, because for me what happened is I don't know what I want, but I know what I don't want. So I think, yeah, so it's a little bit easier than not knowing what I want, but
Mm-hmm.
I also don't know what I don't want. Yeah, so I knew what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want, but I didn't know which direction I wanted to take. So what
Mm-hmm.
I did was, um, I just I started where I'm at. Where am I right now?
Mm-hmm.
What are the opportunities present around me? What are the opportunities I can take? Because um I also want to give this advice. You shouldn't take the first opportunity that presents itself. It's not good. I learned that the hard way. I think people should still, not because an opportunity presents itself to you, you should immediately grab it. You should evaluate the pros and cons still. Um, so yeah, just being assessing where you are, what you are good at. Maybe after some time, I don't know. Took me a while, certainly, to really find it. I mean, for after my first job, it definitely took me 7.5 years to definitely say that I want to do infectious disease research. But even then, I still didn't know what kind of infectious disease research do I want to do. So like having a specific um thing in mind. So right now, what I want to, I say that I'm fortunate that after doing my internship with Erasmus, I realized that I really want to do virus discovery. So that's what I want to do. It's infectious disease research, but towards discovering new viruses, and also doing scientific communication if I could on the side. So yeah, so start with what you know. It may not be what you want right now, but work on it. And then maybe it will get you there. If not, try something again. I know it's a privilege to be able to try and try, because it takes resources. But if you can do it, yeah.
So this is just another question that just popped up in my mind.
Yes.
So I don't know if this is like a global trend, but I see a lot of Sri Lankan youth is trying to find shortcuts. They're like, oh, it takes 4 years to do a degree, so let's just do something else. Why waste the time? So, like you said, it took you 7 years. Like, does the
Yes.
age factor really matter?
Well, okay. At to be honest, at first I think it does. At first I think it does, because partly because my parents were, by this time you should be this, by this
Mhm.
time you should be that.
Mhm.
I studied really early. I started going to school at the age of 2. I graduated my my I graduated high school at 14 years old. I graduated I finished my undergraduate at 18.
Mhm.
So during those times I was like, I have to be I have to be PhD by the age of 24. I
Mhm.
had that timeline in mind. But the thing is, so I mentioned to you that one of my frustrations were resources. Um, when I was doing my first master's, somehow because of personal reasons, I was delayed. Not really academically related, but I was delayed for my studies. And that really frustrated me, because all my life I have this thing where I have to finish early. I have a timeline, I have a plan, and it's not working. And I really got depressed. And I was thinking, is it me? And for a long time, it took such a while to unlearn. Even when I was working already, I was working for the government. And I mentioned earlier that I did my work for 7.5 years. There was a point where I still don't have PhD and I'm aging.
Mhm.
Yeah, so how do I navigate this? And it took a lot of unlearning to not look at the time. To I mean, people might find it cliche to say that do not compete with yourself, or do not compete with with others. Do not look at other people like that. But it is a challenge, and it took a lot of removing all these internalized um, lies that I have inside me. That it's okay. It's okay to be delayed. It's okay if you're not where you want to be. Take your time, because everybody has different circumstances. If you take shortcuts, I think you will also miss a point of learning. Like, what is this situation telling you right now? What is this teaching me right now? So those things, I feel like you can definitely take a shortcut, but who will benefit ultimately? So I think you have to ask yourself as well.
Okay, so my next question is for
Mm,
the students who are already passionate in science,
yeah.
like what kind of skills that they should develop? Like
Mm,
they're going to learn science, like let's say like they're going into science programs in a couple of years. So
mm.
what would be the skills that they would require to do better in the university?
Okay, so I think having an open mind is a really good asset to have. Um, I know it's a cliche, but it's a really valuable asset if you want to become a better scientist. You have to, like, having an open mind in a sense that you are welcome to everything, to all the information that you receive, but you receive it with a grain of salt. Even if you are open to everything, you question everything, even the things that you already believe in. It's important to do that because science is science is evolving. The things that sometimes even the things that we consider to be facts, long-standing facts, sometimes they can be refuted. So it's very important to um, open yourself to changes, to possibilities, thinking outside of the box, those things, and also widening your interests. Not only in science, like have other interests like arts, humanities, because these things shape you as a person, and it also kind of defines how you do your science. Would you be an ethical scientist? Yeah, that comes from having, like being human, having interests probably in literature or in history, because when you read, especially when you're interested in history, when you know about people's backgrounds or like the background of these things, you kind of have an idea what you're working at. So like yeah, those things, having huge interests, different skill sets, it's an asset. So
Mm.
if you have the privilege to widen your interests, do that. And also in relation to that, I think it's really good to take every opportunity to learn, to just learn. Even if at the moment people would tell you, what is the value in that? Would you earn money when if you learn that? Wait, sorry, excuse me. Even if people, or even if you yourself would say that, I'm not really, I don't think I can profit from this, but I think it's good to learn something just for the sake of learning. I think that's a really good um skill to develop, like just taking in
Mm-hmm.
something. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
taking in
really glad
information.
that you
Yeah,
brought up literature and history because I saw a recent, let's say, like a forum where people
yeah,
were talking about removing literature and history from the school curriculum, and they were
that's a bad
like,
idea.
what are they gonna get by learning this? Like, why
Yeah,
not teach them economics or something? Like,
yeah. I
literature
mean,
and history is what makes you a person.
yes. I mean, to be honest, I can see where they're coming from because they think that it's uh it it's not profitable. They're thinking from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective. But to be honest, like when I especially when I came to this program and I found people who I have similar interests in, and then I kind of also shared to them um a frustration in me, that because I found growing up I find myself very weird. People find me very weird because I have a lot of interests that didn't really um, conform to the norm. So um, it was strange for people. So I was also kind of like discouraged to learn it, but then I really liked it. So I kind of hid it from people. And then when I found people who share the same interest with me, I was really happy and also kind of frustrated that it's not very widely common, especially in my country. Some of these things are very taken for granted. Humanities is taken for granted. For instance, learning languages. Yeah, some people would say that, okay, in my country, we are right now we are heavily Western influenced. So most kids growing up these days, they don't even know how to speak our proper language. To be honest, I myself, I'm not well versed in my own language, and it's such a shame. I think, I mean, I can speak, I can speak clearly in Filipino, but my the automatic setup of my brain is already in English. And
Mhm.
some people are also some kids especially are also the same way, because growing up they're exposed to media that are in English, and there's nothing wrong with it because kids are developing. But when you take away these things that is an opportunity for them to learn something else, and not just um, things that would lead them to something profitable in the future, you also kind of take away the humanity of things. Um, yeah, like, okay, I'll give you one instance. I had a conversation with a friend about this. I think one of the reasons why it is not valued, especially in countries such as ours, third world countries, is because this is a privilege to learn. So we discussed earlier about they wanted to remove these
Mhm.
things from curriculum because these are not profitable. Yeah, I can agree to it to some extent, because what you see, no, I don't agree definitely on removing it in the curriculum, of course, but like, um I sorry, I might be misquoted in that, but what I am agreeing to, I think it's wrong to say that I agree to it, but I can understand where they're coming from. That's what I wanted to say. I can understand where they're coming from, because sometimes, um why would, like, we talked about this, like, why would you try to learn something if you are starving?
Mhm.
Yeah, so like, if you don't have the basic needs, why would you entertain these luxuries? So yeah, I totally understand, but I totally understand where they're coming from, but I think it's a bad idea to remove it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way I see it, like we live one life, but if
Yes.
you read, and if you read like literature and history, you
Yeah.
live you live like thousands of lives, and you get so
Yes,
many
you
life
expand
experience.
your horizon.
Yeah, so you learn from the mistakes of other people. Like you can
Yes.
do it yourself, I mean, by living your life,
Yeah.
but it's only one life.
Yeah, that's true.
So read, people, read.
Yes. Learn.
Okay, so with that, we will
Yes.
finish today's episode, and I hope you learned something. And Hale is about to start a YouTube channel, so when she starts, I will
I hope
put the link
so.
in the description below. Oh, you should.
Yeah, thank you for encouraging me.
Yeah,
I
you
was
should
only hoping
start.
for a podcast like yours, but yeah, you're pushing me for a YouTube channel. I hope I could really push through it. But thank you so much for the
You should.
encouragement, and
You
really
should.
thank you for having me here. It was such a treat to discuss these things with you. I mean, I feel like I didn't just talk about um infectious disease. I also kind of talked about life in general.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we are doing here. So we are sharing our
Yes.
experiences,
Mm,
so you can learn something from
mm,
us.
mhm.
So that's the idea. And see
Okay.
you soon from another video. Bye.
Yes. Bye.